Hello, members from rainy Queensland, rainy Brisbane at the moment. I'm just doing. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Mark Bynum. Coming into this role, I'd like to acknowledge Mark Bynum for his stewardship of the AFA. Over the past 4 years, Mark's commitment to the AFA and financial advice is unrivaled, serving 10 years on the AFA board and being only one of a few two-term AFA presidents. I know the pressures of the role, and on behalf of the board and AFA members, I want to thank Mark for his leadership, commitment and his sacrifice. Also, I want to acknowledge the work of Mark and the board who led the AFA through the roller coaster of 2020. We've all experienced this COVID epidemic, and it's been no easy task taking into account the disruptions and the financial uncertainty. On that note, I believe it's also appropriate that I mention the work of Sam Pereira, the newly elected Vice President, whom in his prior role as Treasurer set the AFA on track to operate more efficiently and effectively during the downturn of the recent COVID times. And he did this extremely well with the AFA operational staff. This has set the AFA up very well for the current term. And I also want to add that Sam has he's been quite effective with his advocacy and policy, working with the AFA while he's been on the board. So thank you, Sam. In entering the president position, I do so with 8 years AFA board service. 2 as the AFA Queensland State Director, a term as the AFA National President back in the FOFA years of 2013-14, and more recently, the last 4 years, I've been Vice President supporting Mark. I've always held the highest respect for the AFA and its reputation of financial advice. 15 years ago, as a young advisor, I was attracted to join the AFA due to its rich local community in Queensland and its authentic and practical approach to policy and advocacy. A little about me. I'm a 42-year-old practice owner of Nowak Financial Services based in Brisbane. I'm a second-generation financial advisor, having successfully completed a family business succession. Some of you might know my father, Joe. In fact, this year in June, our business turned 50, which is a milestone that we're very, very proud of. I live in the inner west Brisbane suburb of Auckland with my wife, Amy, and 2 kids, Olivia and Lockie. And when I get some spare time, not doing work or AFA work, I enjoy a bit of surfing, listening to music and watching some rugby. As a financial advisor and AFA board member, my ambition has always been to operate in an environment in which I, as a trusted professional advisor, can best serve my clients. Seeking this trust and recognition is where my efforts have been and will continue to be focused. Given the extensive benefits that financial advice provides to Australians, it's imperative that financial advice becomes more accessible and the barriers to advice are removed. I'd now like to welcome the new board, especially the new members, Stephen Knight in Western Australia and Catherine Hayes in New South Wales. I also do want to acknowledge those that nominated in the board election this year, Wayne Leggett and James Walker-Powell. It's promising to see interesting competition for the AFA board positions and also democracy at play. I also do want to give special acknowledgement to our members in Victoria. Hang in there and keep on looking after your clients, but more importantly, keep looking after yourselves in these crazy times. Great news today with the restrictions being lifted, so some much needed relief and enjoy. As has been mentioned in previous reports, the AFA has reviewed the strategic and business plans to ensure that we are on the right course and can continue to operate to best serve our membership in the current times. Whilst our strategic direction remains consistent, at the operational level, the business plans have been adjusted to ensure that the AFA can deliver on the highest priorities of our membership. We've asked you, and you've told us your priorities. Firstly is policy and advocacy, which I'll go through in a bit more detail. Secondly, it's the promotion of the value of advice, although at this stage we need to move, as Phil Kewen has said, to a more cost-effective grassroots strategy in these times. Communities are the heart of the AFA and they remain a high priority. In the COVID environment, we aim to maintain as much face-to-face engagement as we can, as is possible. However, nationally, the AFA has been agile and adapted, moving to online webinars and pioneering the virtual conference, which received an amazing response. And I have to take my hat off to the AFA team for delivering such a market-leading event. From the operational point of view, maintaining memberships, as has been discussed, maintaining value-driven partnerships and revenues also to ensure that we can continue to deliver for our members has been our focus. This has required greater due diligence in recent times, which I'm sure that you can appreciate. Echoing Mark and Phil on advocacy and policy, these are our top priorities in the next term. We hear you. The pendulum, it's swung too far. It's widely held view that the regulatory regime for financial advice is impacting both access and affordability, and that advisors desperately need some relief in order to be able to continue to cost-effectively serve all types of clients. As more and more advisors attain a higher level of professional standards and qualifications, I believe they're justified to be querying how the regulatory environment will adapt to recognise their professional status. In terms of advocacy, in recent times the AFA has done significant work in the area, working with government, with ministers, with backbenchers, with crossbenchers, with the regulators, ASIC, FASIA, the TPB and AFCA. We've been communicating the value of advice and the benefit that it provides to Australians, but we've also been providing input into all the policy decisions that come their way. Those that attended the AFA virtual conference recently saw the change in tone by the regulators and the governments. It's critical now that this momentum is converted into more practical policy outcomes for advisors and their clients. My primary motivation for nominating for president is to lead the AFA through the upcoming period, which includes the LIF review. And with this, the AFA firmly believes in the value of risk advice, and we will represent you with the United FPA and also with the life companies. Also, we've got the remaining Royal Commission policy implementation, and we want to get the right balances on these issues, including annual renewal, which we've been through. I'm looking forward to working with our new board to ensure that we can achieve the right outcomes. I'm also looking forward to working with the AFA team, Phil Kewen, and his general managers, Phil, Natalie and Rob, with whom I already have a really close and respectful working relationship. But most importantly, I'm looking forward to working with you, our members. I understand that the AFA comprises of a broad church of advisors belonging to different groups and specialisations, and I believe it is important that the AFA take into account the interests of all these groups during our representations. In the upcoming period, it will be necessary for the AFA to engage and empower our members to work together to achieve our shared objectives. I ask you to consider what you can do for the AFA and your profession, be it educating politicians, providing input into the board, or assisting us to promote advice. This applies to our financial advice members and their staff, but also our licensee partners and other partners. In closing, keep up the great work that you're doing. Keep looking after the financial and psychological well-being of Australians and guiding them to more secure and fulfilled lives, particularly in the current COVID environment. The AFA believes in you, and our goal is to see all of you continue on your advice journey and be recognised, respected, and operate in an environment that recognises your level of professionalism. As your new president, it is now my duty to close this meeting. Thank you all for attending, and I and the board look forward to representing you over the next 2 years.